Today's Locked On Thunder podcast. The Oklahoma City Thunder have some interesting lineup combinations that they can put out there this season. And what are the top games to watch for the Thunder this year?
You are Locked On Thunder, your daily Oklahoma City Thunder podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Let's get it going on the Locked On Thunder podcast. On the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I am your host, media member and beat writer for Thunder on SI, Rylan Stiles. Follow me on Twitter at Rylan_Stiles. Follow the show on Twitter at LO ThunderPod. Thank you so much for making us your first listen every single day. We love the everydayers at Locked On Thunder. We're joined today by Michael Martin. Let's Talk Thunder on YouTube, at Michael on Sports, across social media. On today's show, brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNBA at monarchmoney.com for half off your first year. We're diving into the most interesting lineups that the Thunder can roll onto the court this year and the top games to watch. Despite the Thunder bringing back 14 of their 15 standard contract guys and even a third of their two-way guys, there's still a lot of interesting moving parts about this rotation with Mark. Michael, I think that this will be a fun season to watch.
I can't think of any other way to put it. It's going to be fun. I'm really excited to see how this team responds after winning a championship and that extra confidence they get.
Yeah, I'm curious how they handle, the target on their back is a big word that you're going to hear people talk about all the time, being the hunted instead of the huntee. But it is true in a sense. I think back to last season, and even whenever they were down a few guys in Boston, the Thunder took that game to a different level when it came to their energy and their intensity. And this is a team that tries to take every game one of 82, but you could tell that playing Boston last year was a bit different. The Thunder are the bar. They are the litmus test. Like, this is where teams are going to see what they're made of. So how they handle that will be interesting. But even though they've returned a lot of guys, even if you just look at the rookies, like you're interested in how Topic fits in here. You're interested of how Thomas Sorber fits in here. A lot of people have kind of dubbed him as the replacement to Isaiah Hartenstein. Well, to do that, he's going to need to be pretty good pretty fast if they're going to get to that end point. Brooks Barnhizer could be the next in the pipeline of two-way to standard contract. But even more than that, even at the very tippity top of this roster, like Shea has never came back from a season the same as he was before. He's always improved. You know that Chet Holmgren has to take another step. Cason Wallace, another step. J-Dub, another step. So up and down this roster, there's a lot of different lineups, a lot of different combinations that I think will be fun to go over. My first lineup is Nikola Topic, Cason Wallace, J-Dub, Aaron Wiggins, and Thomas Sorber. I don't know how much of Thomas Sorber is going to play this season, so I want to see him on the floor. Him and Topic, most intrigued by. Topic is going to be someone who's under the microscope at every given minute he's on the floor. Even if it's a 20-point game in Charlotte, he'll be under the microscope. And this lineup allows him to initiate, allows him to create. Ideally, you see Cason Wallace get back to his rookie year shooting numbers. Ideally, you see J-Dub get back to his sophomore year shooting numbers, and you have an offensive weapon in Wiggins with him, along with a really good pick and roll partner that projects to be with Sorber's ability to finish at the rim and finish in the mid-range, and he can initiate for this offense while working on some possessions playing off of J-Dub, because we know that J-Dub's a big driving force when he's in the game alone. He's a big creator when he's in the game alone. So this is kind of the best of both worlds, where you can rely on Topic in a more natural spot while also working with him on some things he's deficient at right now, which is playing off the ball offensively. And then defensively, I expect Sorber to be pretty good on the defensive end of the floor. I expect them to protect him in the sense of in pick and roll coverages, he's just playing drop. He's just protecting the rim. Cason and J-Dub, all defensive caliber guys, stress testing Wiggins in an area that he's uncomfortable in, but frankly, has to be better at. Like, he has to take that step forward, defending bigger bodies down low. And then you also get to see what Topic is made of whenever he's protected on the outside by Cason Wallace. So I'm really interested in this lineup.
Yeah, I've got one similar. I have a Topic-Sorber lineup, which is Nikola Topic, Alex Caruso, Jalen Williams, J-Dub, Kenrich Williams, and Thomas Sorber, sort of in the same vein as you of I wanted to insulate those guys with a lot of veterans, and I think Caruso and Kenrich would be perfect for that. of Caruso as a guy on the ball defensively who can really mask a lot of those issues for Topic. Kenrich is a big body, like small ball 5'4", who can really help Sorber in some of those things. And just like you, I have Dub out there as sort of the focal point offensively and the fulcrum where they can run everything through him. But more than anything, like I want to see Dub in these specific lineups, yours and mine, that we're talking about, him get more back to his traditional position at the 3 and really being a scorer in that role and not having to worry about facilitating and playmaking as much and really handing the keys to Topic in those.
Yeah, and these are going to be interesting lineups. They're not even necessarily projecting to be the best by any means, or the lineups that we expect to play the most, but just lineups that we're intrigued by. I mean, you can go to the double big lineup that they started since Chet returned up until the finals as a lineup that will still be under the microscope of just how do they progress? How does Chet Holmgren look offensively this year to make that offense look better when he shares the floor with Hartenstein? But this is just about what we're excited to see. We're not projecting like what will be the best 5-man group. But what's your next lineup that you're itching to watch?
It would actually be one of the statistically great ones. It's one that we talked about earlier of the starting lineup that I'm hoping to see if I was in charge, which I'm not, luckily, for a lot of you guys. And that would be Shea, Dort, Case, and Dub, and Chet. And, this was their second most played lineup during the playoffs last year, and far and away their best lineup is a plus 30.6 in per 100 possessions. So I'm just looking forward to seeing how they continue to mold and mesh together. Presti has talked about this a lot in terms of just continuity being a major factor for teams as they continue to make further and further postseason runs. So I'm really interested to see how they sort of can parlay that into next season.
This was also my lineup number 2. Wrote about this as well for Thunder on SI, which you can go read to kind of get a visual in front of you of these lineups. But I think that this should be their starting lineup. I agree with you. This would be what I would lean in toward if I was Oklahoma City. And in large part because of how well it all meshes together. Not to say that the Hartenstein-Holmgren lineup doesn't mesh together well. They actually improved dramatically in their short time together. So don't come for me and get any calls over this. I will say, when I look at what Shea and J-Dub did to the Pacers with their season on the line, going to that 2-man guard-to-guard screening action to get any switch that they wanted to, I would like to see that become a bigger focal point of what this lineup is. Because ideally, you have Lou Dort, who is a great 3-and-D player. Cason Wallace is an elite level cutter, and it will even be heightened if he gets back to where he was as a rookie shooting the basketball. Chet Holmgren as a floor spacer, a rim protector. Like this should be a lineup that just is a ton of different problems and no solutions for an opposing defense. So I love this lineup. I do think that this will be their statistical best lineup on the court. If you erase, garbage time and erase some of those metrics that Cleaning the Glass does, like this will be their in-game lineup. But I cannot wait to see it still, because all these guys that we're talking about, even though it's a known commodity at this point, even though you've seen this lineup play a lot, you haven't seen this lineup play with this version of themselves. Like J-Dub in the playoffs with a hurt wrist, got downhill at will, got to the free throw line more than he has. And if that carries over, like that revolutionizes what this group is, even though we've seen this group before. Lineup number 3 for me is a double big lineup, but it's not about them. Like I do think that Holmgren and Hartenstein have taken a step in making it look less clunky than it did initially, which is to be expected. And I do expect that Chet Holmgren will shoot the ball exceptional for his position this season, because that's what he's done at every step of his career. Even as a rookie, he was really good shooting the basketball. And that allows an offense that is flanked in this lineup by Wiggins, Dort, and Shea to really operate within itself very well. I think that Wiggins, I imagine this lineup being like a staggerization of like you want J-Dub off the court real quick because you're going to put him in to start the second quarter and lead the team. And Wiggins can be that second shot creator. He can be that second go-to scorer alongside of Shea. And most importantly, Wiggins can play the 3. And I think that defensively, if you really break down who Aaron Wiggins is, right now, I think he has a reputation of a bad defender, but he's a bad defender in the context of what the Thunder asked him to do. I think he's actually a good defender when he's defending smaller 3s and, of course, guards, that this lineup could be lethal on top of what Lou Dort can do, on top of what Shea gives you defensively. I think that this can be a really nice lineup for the Thunder.
Yeah, similarly, I do have the double big lineup, and I have the starting one that they went with earlier. I don't have Wiggs. I still have Dub in that spot, and I do have a few more concerns than you do, it sounds like. of just how clunky it was. I think it was really effective, especially in that Denver series. It really swung that series. But I just want to see those guys continue to look more and more comfortable, and Chet look more like the guy that we saw him pre-hip injury, which is, asking a lot of him. But I just want to see those guys continue to sort of figure out the meshing and continuity factor of just what it looks like of playing together, because Chet, he's been a 5 for a very long time. Like, he played a little bit of the 4 back at Gonzaga next to Drew Timme, but I think this has been a major adjustment period for him, and he looks more comfortable. So I think having this entire offseason together is going to really, really bolster those units.
Coming up, our thoughts on the double big, the rest of our lineups that we're most interested in watching, and the games you cannot miss this season. But first, I want to say right now, but good friends over at Monarch Money, go check out Monarch Money today, because Monarch Money is incredible. Most people can't even name all of their financial accounts or even what they're worth, whether it's a 401k or properties or investments. And when you don't have the full picture, you can be leaving a lot of money on the table. That's why Monarch Money is an all-in-one personal financing tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or your phone. Whenever you have Monarch Money, it does the heavy lifting for you. You can link all of your accounts in minutes and see easy, clear visuals on what's going on with smart categorizations on your spending. And it even gives you full control over your money without ever touching a spreadsheet. They also, with that visualization, break down what you're spending on subscription services. And this is a big deal. I've saved a ton of money with Monarch Money because it cuts out my meaningless subscriptions that I even forgot I had. You want to go sign up for a subtext, you want to go sign up for a Substack and a Netflix account, and why am I paying for Spotify and Apple Music? I don't know, but I fixed it with Monarch Money, so you can stop leaving mean comments about my financial habits with Monarch Money. Code LOCKEDONNBA. MonarchMoney.com. Half off your first year, 50% off your first year at MonarchMoney.com. Code LOCKEDONNBA. We're back on the Lockdown Thunder podcast on the Lockdown Podcast Network, your teams every day, here talking about the most interesting lineups for the Thunder. The double big lineup that you talked about before the break, having Shea, Dub, Dort, Ihart, and Holmgren. It got better to me spacing-wise offensively, and it just came down to Chet Holmgren could not hit threes. I mean, he's a guy that has always shot better whenever he had more rest, and he had more of a rest advantage because his shot is naturally flat. If those legs go at all, it is detrimentally flat. And obviously his legs were out from under him offensively for most, if not all, of that playoff run that saw him drag his 3-point percentage down and in some ways drag the offense down. I'm expecting a bigger step forward from the 3-point line for Chet, which then in turn, I think, will naturally prop up that lineup. I do think that this is still worth putting on the list. I have it as an honorable mention, so I'm glad that you brought it up, because we also have what we would ideally put as the starting 5. So watching these two different lineups interact and mesh as the season progresses could give us a clearer picture of how the Thunder should attack this postseason. Now, clearly matchups make fights. So if they're playing Denver or even Houston, you might naturally gravitate more toward a double big lineup. But for most situations, you're going to want, I think, that Case and Wallace lineup in place of Hartenstein in there. And that's what they gravitated toward in the Western Conference Finals. And that's why I pushed back on it being a big deal that in game 1, they went away from Isaiah Hartenstein, because they really had went away from him in the Western Conference Finals. He was starting in name only. The real heavy minutes were eaten up by that Case and Wallace lineup that they started against Indiana in game 1 of the finals. So I will say it's so interesting to see it happen. I think that they clicked better defensively throughout the last stretch of that season. And I think that the offense is an easy fix, but you need to watch to see if that's true. Is it going to be the easy fix that we think it will? So that for sure deserves to be on the list. Mine in the lineup number 4, J-Dub, Isaiah Joe, Case and Wallace, Aaron Wiggins, Isaiah Hartenstein. Now, this is on here because Isaiah Joe, in theory, would be a really good floor spacer for this lineup. Case and Wallace is in a lineup here where he should utilize his cutting. Again, he should be better from 3. And he still will have opportunities to play off the catch and to initiate offenses because J-Dub is so flexible at playing away from the ball. It also lets you stress test Aaron Wiggins playing alongside a center, but still having to defend bigger bodies, because this to me is a prove it year. It is a determination year, right? Like, you have to decide on if Wiggins still cannot defend 4s and 5s, That's not to say he's a bad player. He's a bad fit for the Thunder because the Thunder are always going to have to ask him to do this. And you saw it in the playoffs. Like when you look at Wiggins as a player, he's their third best shot creator. He's a really good floor spacer playing off the ball. But why couldn't he stay on the floor in the postseason? Was because he cannot defend bigger bodies. And I know he's not comfortable with it, but you've got to spend this summer, spend this season getting better at that. And so watching him play the floor this year is really intriguing to me because it to me should foretell what his future is in OKC. Same with Isaiah Joe. Like Isaiah Joe should tie this lineup together. He should benefit from playing alongside Hartenstein, having to come off screens with DHOs and relocating off of Hartenstein's playmaking in the high post and find his way to a high volume amount of threes with this group. If he can't do that, like then you have a whole different conversation on your hands on top of this lineup putting J-Dub in a position to show you that he can translate what he did in the postseason to the regular season, because this lineup should open things up for him to get to the free throw line nonstop, to get to the rim nonstop. And that's where you see the seismic leaps from the point per game totals. Look at Luka, look at Shea, look at all the guys who you think of as elite level scorers, and look at how their careers have progressed in the point per game total. What's also gone up is free throws per game. And that was at a dreadfully low number for what J-Dub was a year ago. Part of that's on the officials. Part of that is on J-Dub. He figured it out in the playoffs. And I want to see him continue to do that in the regular season this year. And this group, I think, lets it happen.
Yeah, I like that lineup. I mean, one of the things with Isaiah Joe is I just kind of already know what I feel like about him, and I don't think much is going to change in the regular season. For him, it's just almost like a wait until the playoffs sort of situation. My next lineup also has Wiggs at the 4, and I have some similar questions. I do wonder just how much extra muscle and mass can he put on his frame? I know he's a guy who's been in the league for a few years now, so if that's going to happen, maybe it would have already happened. But my next lineup is Dub, AC, Kaysen, Wiggins, and Hart. Basically, the Dub runs the show minutes is what I'm calling it. This wasn't a lineup they used a lot in the regular season. As a matter of fact, it wasn't in their top 20 most played five-man lineups. But it was one that Mark went into the playoffs with a lot of success. That five-man group was the Thunder's third most played five-man lineup in the playoffs and had the second best net rating per 100 possessions of any Thunder five-man lineup in the postseason. So I wonder if they can sort of translate that success again to the regular season. I know that with the regular season, Mark is probably going to stagger some of those minutes more and try to get guys like AJ and Topic some touches in there, and Isaiah Joe, like you mentioned. But I think any lineup with J-Dub, Caruso, Kaysen, Wiggins, and Hart, I think is going to be a lot of fun.
I love that lineup, and I don't know like how much we'll get to see it in the regular season, partly because of them saving Caruso from himself and them managing this stretch where you just played until deep into June. You hope to play deep into June again this season. But the playoff numbers to me jump out there of it serving as a little bit of a taste in the regular season that you're going to get, but knowing that this is going to be a massive deal come postseason time. Like you're going to want to have J-Dub and Shea on the floor at all times, at least one of those guys on the floor at all times. And this is his best lineup to partner with someone. And he's excellent with Isaiah Hartenstein. Like the ability for J-Dub to thrive. I think that you're going to see this season. It's going to stand out like a sore thumb of J-Dub is at his best in a two-man game with iHeart. Shea's at his best in a two-man game with Chet because Shea needs all that mid-range to operate, and he needs to get to the rim to operate, and Chet being able to pop out better than Hartenstein can will be a big deal for him. And then Isaiah's ability to just create separation for J-Dub is all that he needs. He doesn't care if it's crowded. He doesn't care if there's a lot of bodies down there. Just getting that separation from his point of attack defender is enough for J-Dub, whereas Shea creates that separation naturally, so he doesn't need to rely on the screen setting ability of Chet to do that. iHeart's, of course, a better screen setter than Chet, and that really bolsters up what J-Dub can do. So I cannot wait to see those two on the floor specifically, but then you mix in the rest of that lineup, and I do think it'll be their second best lineup in the postseason because you're going to be relying on it for any amount of time that Shea's off the floor in the playoffs. So I love that one. I also have lineup number 5 for me, Nikola Topic, Isaiah Joe, Lou Dort, Wiggins, Chet. I put Chet in here because I look at what he did with Brandon Carlson in the Summer League. This is really silly, but this is why it's interesting. I'm not saying it's going to be great. I'm not saying it's going to be world-stopping. I'm just saying it's going to be interesting because what he did in that game with Brandon Carlson, where Carlson's a guy who can shoot threes and who can finish above the rim, pairing him with Chet to be able to give Chet a lob thrower and allow him to be a more vertical roller on top of what Chet's ability is to shoot the basketball, I think will maximize both Holmgren and Topic. And then Isaiah Joe just kind of camping in the corner as what he is most comfortable in as a stationary catch and shoot 3-point shooter. I don't think that comfortability is necessarily a great thing, because I think that gets taken away a lot in the playoffs. But for the sake of this regular season lineup, him being there is going to work, because with Topic getting downhill and being able to drive and kick after a paint touch to Joe, it will be there. Lou Dort defensively to help this lineup that has Holmgren elite defender, Lou elite defender, Isaiah Joe above average defender, maybe if you want to stretch. And then Wiggins, of what we know right now, bad defender at the 4-4, and Topic, of what we're projecting, bad defender. Like, you got to have Lou out there. So I just want to see how they can fit this all together. And when you only have one guy protecting Topic and one guy protecting the rim, what does he look like defensively? As that's a massive question of if you can even calculate Topic into this team come playoff time. Is his defense? Can he stay on the floor? And that's going to be a big deal, I think. So I just want to see what this lineup looks like together.
Yeah, my last lineup, we have 3 of the 5 same guys. I don't know if this is a lineup that will actually get any run that I have here, but it is. We have Topic, AJ Mitchell, J-Dub, Wiggs, and Chet. Similar to what you said, I want Chet in the back line. I want to see what that looks like next to Topic, especially in the pick and roll, where I think that's where his passing and playmaking really shines. And then around that, you have guys like Dub, Wiggins, and AJ, who can all really attack closeouts and off the dribble and have some more of those like supplementary ball handling roles. But more than anything, it's like what I mentioned earlier in the Dub and the Dub solo minutes is I just want to see him primarily as a scorer, and I think that AJ and Topic could play really well together. We saw a little bit of that in Summer League, and I want to see them more tied together in some of these units to develop some chemistry. And then you have a lot of cutters for Topic to play off of, guys like AJ, Wiggs, and Dub, who can all cut really well. And then, of course, Chet spacing the floor and protecting the rim on the other end, like you mentioned.
I think that's going to be a lot of fun to just figure out where Topic is at. I think that this could be, I think that your lineup could just be called the figure it out lineup of just you're seeing what does AJ look like? What does Topic look like? They might even take turns initiating things. We have a feeling that AJ, of course, is a better off-the-ball player than Topic is at this current stage, and probably will be for the length of their careers. But at least at this current stage, AJ's ahead of Topic off the ball. But kind of a position battle, if you will, in the midst of a lineup on top of the juiciness around them. I like that lineup. I think that this will be fun. I don't know if Mark's going to play any of these lineups, but I will say Mark will also play a billion lineups. So it's a pretty good shot that he'll play all of our lineups on this list. So Mark does us a favor there. He'll make us look really, really smart or really wrong, because eventually these lineups will get to play, and eventually we'll have lineup data on these lineups. But coming up, what are the games you cannot miss for the Oklahoma City Thunder? We're back on the Lockdown Thunder podcast on the Lockdown Podcast Network, your teams every day. Thank you so much for making us your first listen every single morning. Go check out Locked On Nuggets for what the Denver Nuggets are up to in the midst of August and as they try to dethrone Oklahoma City. Michael and I put together our top 5 can't miss games. We get it. Luckily, we get paid to watch these games, so we get to watch all 82 and have to watch all 82. You guys might have obligations, might have things going on in life where you can't invest for all 82 games. What are the 5 games that you cannot miss? You need to avoid doing anything else but watching Thunder basketball. We're going to get our list here now. My list is Houston on opening night. We'll get to that. At Dallas, October 27th. Against the Spurs on Christmas Day. Denver on February 1st. That's the first matchup with Denver. And the Lakers, February the 9th. Michael's list is opening night. Christmas against San Antonio. The first Denver matchup, February 1st. January 19th. At Cleveland, and then March 1st at Dallas. Michael, let's take opening night first. Why can people not miss the opening night game?
I mean, how many times can you watch your team raise their first banner in franchise history? It's the culmination of a bunch of things. I mean, ring night's going to be a magical night that people are not going to want to miss out. This is going to be a night that probably more fans are going to rewatch than any game this regular season. So I think it's an impactful moment and something that you just have to sort of clear your calendar for. Of course, you have all the subplots of guys like Kevin Durant coming in and seeing how the Thunder match up with the Rockets, who were number 2 in the West last year. But just by all accounts, if you just look at the games and just look at the bare bones basic stuff, you got to be there either in person or watching it on TV when it comes to dropping the banner on ring night.
Yeah, you've got to watch this on display for the hoopla pregame. And then also, we mentioned the first Denver game. This is also the first Houston game, obviously. And Houston being a threat to OKC out west is going to be a big deal to see how they match up X's and O's wise. I mean, historically on ring night, the champion does lose, and there's a kind of a lot going on. So it's tough to focus on the basketball, but we should get a fun game, and we should see these two teams who should be in the top three of the West. Like there's a clear defined top tier, and it's OKC, Denver, Houston. This is going to be a lot of fun to watch. Now, we both have the Christmas Day game against the Spurs. My only quorum with the Christmas Day game against the Spurs, it's on there in part because it's Christmas, and it's incredible to be on one of the tentpole days in the NBA. The Thunder had been snubbed from this list since 2018, and used to be a staple of this list up until then. Why on earth is the NBA making a baseball-style series with the Christmas Eve Spurs game and then the Christmas Day Spurs game? I'll never know, but it'll still be fun to watch these young cores go at it. I think that the Spurs are heading in a great direction. I, of course, love Wemby and Shea and Chet going against Wemby. He has always produced great theater since the first preseason game of Wemby's career. So I think that this is going to be a lot of fun to watch these two teams play. And that's where I'm at with this Christmas Day game. Was there anything else that intrigued you about this Christmas Day matchup?
I mean, this is the first Christmas game day matchup in so long. I mean, the last time the Thunder had a Christmas game, Thomas Sorber was 3 years old. That's not real, but I thought I'd fool you on that one. But there's a lot going on, like you mentioned, Wemby. I think there's a brewing rivalry here between these two teams. Maybe it'll overtake the Thunder and the Bucks is a great rivalry in the NBA as we know it. But I think the Spurs are on a really high trajectory as a young team that the Thunder are going to have to worry about for a while. And they could catch them at the right time. The only thing that's sort of deflating is, like you mentioned, the baseball series of like, why? How does that happen where they scheduled them a few days before this giant matchup? You want to build a bunch of anticipation. You don't want to have these teams play before, especially not super recently. So I think there's going to be a lot of fun stuff with that. And we also get to see some different like Christmas kicks from the guys and a lot of, well, basically all the players, their first Christmas game debut. So I'm really interested to see how they react to that.
Yeah, it'll be a lot of fun to see. I mean, Hartenstein is for sure playing on Christmas because he played for the Knicks. I'm sure Caruso did with the Lakers, but other than that, no Thunder player has been on there. This is the second go around for the Spurs for playing last year in New York. I'm also, shout out to Sorber. I'm glad you mentioned it. It's his birthday. Christmas Day is his birthday. So how about that for Thomas Sorber getting to play, hopefully play on his birthday. Now, we do have the similar teams. We have Dallas here first to talk about. October 27th for me, and then March 1st for you. I imagine that you put them on the later half because hopefully Kyrie's back by then. I'm just curious to see Dallas's defense because I want to see what a healthy version of AD and Gafford and Lively and Cooper Flag is going to be an amazing defender right out of the chute. I just like this Mavericks team defensively and how the Thunder will attack it. I also like the budding rivalry of just at least the fan bases don't like each other. So like it'll be a lot of fun to see those two teams go at it. But ultimately, I agree. Dallas is on the list, and hopefully for your game, Kyrie's back.
Yeah, it's a lot about Kyrie of wanting to see him in this matchup because he changes everything because he is the one elite ball handler that they have. I don't trust D'Angelo Russell or any of the other guys that they have really right now. And then beyond that, it's also about by that time of the season, you're going to have Cooper Flag really finding his stride, who he is as an NBA player in his rookie year. Anthony Davis, knock on wood, we don't know if he's going to be healthy. Gafford, Lively, all those guys. But the idea would be that there's some continuity finally built because I think that the Mavs are going to have a competitive team and a playoff team. But I think it could be really clunky really early, especially in the early part of the season when they play the Thunder at that point. So I want to see them a little bit later, especially with Kyrie, and more than anything where they sort of have some things figured out. Maybe they make a trade at the deadline. But I think that's going to be a more important matchup and maybe a preview for the playoffs coming up.
I also love whenever they play Dallas twice on the road because it's such an easy road trip. And you don't get any of these whenever you're located in OKC with how the NBA is set up. There's no easy road trip besides Dallas. So I love going down there to the old AAC. We'll get to go there 3 times because they play in the preseason too in Fort Worth, that old Dickies Arena. That's a lot of fun. I also have on my list the Lakers. You have on your list the Cleveland Cavaliers. You for sure have the better team because Cleveland's going to be the best team in the East, and they're going to be awesome. I just love seeing Luka play in general, but I also love seeing Luka play against this Thunder defense because he's one of the guys that can really give them trouble or could really face trouble against Lou Dort. So like it's kind of such a matchup between two guys who at any given moment can get the better of one another. His ability to generate corner threes is a big deal against the Thunder. I really, I'm telling you what, I'm bought too far into the Lakers. I'm punch drunk on the Lakers right now in August. I really think that this is the year it all clicks for DeAndre Ayton. If not now, then when? I'm still buying a little bit of Marcus Smart stock, a little penny stock on him being better. I think he'll have his best career shooting season with the Lakers this year, which will be big for him. I don't think he's ever going to get back to where he was defensively, but I also don't think that he's an absolute traffic cone out there any longer, like the way people do. So I'm in on the Lakers. I'm fascinated to see it unfold, but I will say, I think that the Cavaliers for your pick will be a much better team and probably a much better matchup so long as everybody's healthy, which we're expecting them to be, hopefully.
Yeah, I almost had the Lakers in this one. I mean, anytime you can watch Lou Dort versus Luka is going to be really interesting. And then you just talk about games you can't miss. How many more times are we going to get to see LeBron play against the Thunder? So I think that's really impactful. But in terms of the Cavs, we weren't at this game because it was in Cleveland, obviously. But I think that was the best regular season game that I've seen in a very long time between those two teams. And that was, they did have Hartenstein for that one. They didn't have him back for the home one. Chet didn't play in that either of those. So I'm really interested to see that because we've had two different guys sort of ascending at the same time between Mobley and Chet as sort of the modern fives. We talked about Wemby earlier. I think those three guys are sort of leading us into a new generation of modern bigs. Donovan Mitchell, like he just completely got sent to the torture chamber in both of those matchups. How does he respond? I think that's going to be interesting. Darius Garland's one of my favorite guys to watch in the league. I think that their coach is really, really smart, and he matches up well with Mark as a tactician. So I can't blame you for that Lakers matchup and wanting that. I'm not as high on them as you are. Maybe I'm not drinking the JJ Redick pod Kool-Aid that you are in the offseason and rewatching some of those. But I think the Cavs are going to be a really fun matchup. And, you know, maybe, God willing, maybe that's a finals matchup and preview that we see in the regular season.
And I mean, the big three was easy to hit: Christmas Day, opening night, and then this Denver matchup. And we saved talking about Denver for last because we both had them on our list. We both had the exact same date on our list. And this will be, to me, the most interesting game to watch of all of the Denver OKC matchups. Not just because it's first, but one of the Denver OKC matchups is ruined by it being in the midst of a back-to-back for the Nuggets. The Nuggets have the most back-to-backs out of anybody, and obviously that's going to lead itself to being a situation where they have a jam-packed schedule most of the time, and they have a lot to overcome in that way of having a jam-packed schedule. But this is one that's pretty spaced out as far as Denver's schedule goes. They play January 30th against the Clippers at home, stay at home and play the Thunder on the 1st, and then on the 3rd they go play the Detroit Pistons. So it should be a game where it's at home. It's against the altitude for the Thunder. It's a tough place to play, and the Denver Stars that are healthy should play, and hopefully they're all healthy, and hopefully all of the Thunder are healthy. So this just all culminates into what I think will be a very fun game to watch and to see, because I am extremely high on Denver. I have Denver as the second best team in the West after OKC, and then Houston a third team. I don't tether those two together, Denver and Houston, the way a lot of people do. I think that Denver is better than Houston, and the Cam Johnson addition and swap of Michael Porter Jr., the depth additions that they've made this summer with Tim Hardaway Jr. and Jonas Valanciunas, who has playoff concerns, but in the regular season is going to be their best backup big to ever play behind Nikola Jokic since he became what he's became. So I'm going to have this Denver game, just like you, at the top of my list. We're kind of eager to see these two teams face off. And you mentioned continuity. You mentioned, catching a rhythm. Not playing them until February for divisional opponent. And on the contrast, you get all of your Portland games out of the way by the turn of the new year. So I really am interested to see what these matchups with Denver look like.
Yeah, I think these are two teams that are going to be measuring each other throughout the regular season and watching each other and seeing how they sort of approach the regular season with the new additions to both rosters. I mean, the Thunder, the biggest addition is just age and experience, whereas Cam Johnson and then Jonas Valanciunas, like you mentioned, Denver, are big-time acquisitions. Bruce Brown coming back. So I think that's going to be really interesting. But the first matchup between those teams, because it's in Denver, I think adds a little bit more venom to it, because I think both teams are going to be coming for blood in this, in terms of Denver wants to get their lick back. They want to show that they can beat this Thunder team after being eliminated 7 games. And the Thunder are going to want to stake their claim and show that they're still the top dog in the West and in the NBA right now. And as much as we know with Indiana challenged them, pushing them to 7 games, none of those series were as close as the Denver one or as threatening. So just seeing how Jokic sort of responds to last year, how Shea continues to approach that matchup, and just sort of the improvement from both rosters. We're going to see an entire offseason with DA for those guys, coaching them up there. So I'm really excited to see these two teams match up. And luckily, we have quite a few matchups between these two teams in the regular season, but none more important than the first one.
And you have DA, who I think is a great coach. I think David Onman is a fantastic coach, and he'll quickly climb the ranks of who we think of as the best coaches in the league, similar to the way that Mark did. I mean, he went from an unknown to one of the best guys in the league. And whenever you look at the GM survey, which is done by his peers in NBA organizations, like they were on Mark early. They were on Mark whenever this was a 21 team. So like I think it'll be that obvious too that David Onman's a really good coach. That's a big deal. You talk to people in Denver, they're expecting the Nuggets to take the regular season as seriously as they have in quite some time, which is interesting because 2 years ago they were a 57-win team that lost the 1 seed on a tiebreaker with OKC and Minnesota. So I mean, it's not like they've always sleptwalked through the regular season, but they expect this to be a year where they really take it seriously. And just another fun scheduling note: first Sunday without football. I'm not counting the Pro Bowl. Pro Bowl doesn't count. First Sunday without football. Since football season begins this week, and people are going to be wanting to know what to watch. I mean, there's 2 different dates that casual NBA fans start to turn the page to basketball. Christmas Day, which has now been overthrown by the NFL in some ways. And then once football season ends, you really dig into college basketball, NBA basketball, and get ready for the stretch run and the postseason of both sports. And this being on Peacock, on NBC, on Sunday night, whenever you're missing Sunday Night Football, I think will just even heighten the stakes on top of it being in the NBA world. All of you sickos that watch even in August, I appreciate you. You guys are already chomping at the bit for this game. So you blend the two together of casual fans, which is what leagues are built on, and the sicko fans, which are also what this pod is built on, into it being one game that everybody is dialed in for. And in an 82-game season, there's not that many of them in reality.
Yeah, between that game and you reminded me with NBC, I think that also contributes, and you can apply that to the opening night game of just, I want to see how NBC approaches producing these games and these rivalries and these matchups and things, because I think, like you mentioned, chomping at the bit, NBA fans are chomping at the bit for a better presentation, and hopefully NBC can provide that. But you're going to have 2 of the best players in the entire world, the 2 reigning MVPs or the 2 most recent MVPs going against each other. So it should be super, super interesting. You have these 2 teams who were very, very cordial during their playoff 7-game series, which is not super common. But the more and more that they sort of square off against each other, I think that there's going to be a little bit more animosity. And I think that both teams are going to be highly, highly motivated to sort of get the first punch in of winning that first game between the 2 teams next season.
Yeah, I cannot wait. And NBC better not drop the ball on this, because everyone is looking to them as like the savior and as this storytelling entity, which they were whenever they first had the NBA rights. And they need to bring that back. And this is a perfect game along with opening night to really tell the story of, really sink the teeth, get Bob Costas on the line, see if they can really throw it all the way back. But I'm very curious how this all plays out. Those are our top lineups to watch as far as interest goes, and our top games to watch. If you can only pick 5 of the 82-game schedule, go check out Let's Talk Thunder at Michael on Sports on social media. For Michael Martin, I'm Rylan Stiles, host of Lockdown Thunder, at Rylan_Stiles on social media. Until next time, be good and be good to one another.